Judge Edward Deming, W.A. Hitchcock, Alfred Atmore Pope. Alfred Atmore Pope was a cohort of Andrew Carnegie's in the steel industry. And he moved to Farmington because his daughter Theodate designed a house for him up on the hill, which is now the Hillstead Museum. So Alfred Atmore Pope was a contributor. John W. Riddle, who was Theodate's husband and was also ambassador to Argentina, contributed. Herbert Knox Smith, and I find that one incredibly interesting. Winchell Smith, Mrs. Stokes Bray, I have no idea who she is, Howard Waples, and George G. Williams. Those were folks, all of whom I'm sure belonged to that beautiful white building across the street, but they felt strongly enough to this project to support it. I want to go back to Herbert Knox Smith, because of all these names, I found him to be the most interesting. He was born here in Farmington. He was educated, went to Yale, got his law degree, became a very senior member of the Teddy Roosevelt administration, and then came back to live in Farmington and eventually became president of the Farmington, chairman of the Farmington Savings Bank. He died in 1931. But what makes it particularly interesting was that his father, and I believe his grandfather, were both pastors over here at the First Church. So that's ancient history. That was the kind of support that we got from this community back then. I should also tell you that in recent history, we have been given some magnificent support by local members of the First Church. B. Stockwell, who is the current member, the resident of the town of Farmington, and who was always there to help when the need is good, was very supportive of us. The Wadsworth family, who's lived across the street in the same house for over 300 years and have worshiped at the First Church, very supportive. Dr. Jim O'Rourke, who was a member of St. James up on Mountain Road, another person who came forth and spoke stridently in favor of our applications. Now that's one story. There's another interesting story too, and I have been told that there was nothing beneficent in the gifts of these people on Main Street. They supported the Catholic Church because on Sunday mornings, all of their help left town to go somewhere else because there was no Catholic Church here. And they had nobody to mop the floors, to serve the meals, to peel the potatoes, and they wanted to do something to make sure their staff didn't leave them. I find that a bit specious because there were masses going on here between 1885 and today. There were structures, churches, where Catholics could go to worship. So the issue here was not that the folks on Main Street were trying to keep us out, no matter which story we believe. The folks on Main Street wanted us here, and they wanted us to stay here, either through their generosity or their self-interest. We stayed then, we're here today, and we're getting even better. So those are some thoughts on the history of the parish. And the third thing I'd like to do is to sort of put this in a context. I have had the privilege in many, many years in this town to serve in just about every office, elected office and appointed office that you can imagine. I've been on the Board of Education, I've served on the town council of it. And the reason why I'm telling you this is I think I have a fairly good sense of what a community is all about and what a neighborhood is all about. And one of the things that I have learned is that there's essentially a very big difference between a neighborhood and a community. The neighborhood is a place, collection of homes where folks live, where they talk to each other, where they sleep at night, where they have their meals, where sometimes they're out in the street talking and having an enjoyable conversation with their next door neighbor about the 3 home runs that their son hit the night before in the Little League game or whatever. That's the neighborhood. We've got lots of good neighborhoods. But a neighborhood eventually can become a community. And I think that is what's happened along Main Street. We have indeed become a community. Now, if you look toward what comprises a successful life, I think it's very important that you have spiritual enlightenment, spiritual enhancement. I think it's important that you have educational opportunities and development of your intellect. I think it's also important to think that you have the opportunities to maintain physical well-being. I think those are 3 very, very important dimensions of our life. If a community is functioning appropriately, it provides the wherewithal for your intellectual development, for your spiritual development, and for your physical well-being. So be it with the Farmington Village. 2 libraries, the Lewis Library, the Barney Library, 2 schools, Noah Wallace, Miss Porter's, museums. We have it all. We have wonderful sidewalks, we have bike paths, and very soon we're going to have that wonderful live-well development up on the hill. So we are a remarkable community. And among the remarkable community is a very fine church called St. Patrick. We went before the zoning board, we went before the Historic District Commission. We achieved something that I don't think has ever been achieved before in the town of Farmington. We went by the Historic District Commission with a unanimous vote. We went by the Town Planning and Zoning Commission with the unanimous vote. Everybody was happy, nobody had a lot of questions to ask. We got approval. I think we got approval because both of those boards recognized that they were facing a checkmate. They had no alternative. They knew that for the good of the town, for the good of the community, and for the good of the folks at St. Patrick's Church, that this church had to stay here, it had to expand, and it had to continue to be great. So those are some of the thoughts that I want to share with you today. Now I want to look forward a little bit. I have a great deal of concern about what's going to happen here on. I think you could very easily say that today we have reached the end of the beginning and we stand at the beginning of the end. The end of the beginning, we raised our money, we got our materials, our money to build the church, we broke ground, and now we're going to move forward. This is a unique building. It was built 100 years ago. It has not been built with today's engineering skills, with today's building materials, with today's architectural skills. I think there's a lot of danger in taking apart and doing things to this building. So in the past, we prayed, we worked, we give. I'm going to ask you to continue to pray. That the construction of this building goes very well. In any building that you renovate, you find surprise after surprise after surprise. That those surprises are an absolute minimum. If you read the bulletin this morning, you'll find there's already been one surprise out here in the parking lot. We have oil on this property, but not the kind we can pump. It's the kind we got to clean up. There's a big oil spill under the ground out there. That's a surprise that we absolutely did not expect. So I'm asking you to pray that the project goes well, and we may be coming back to you at some point and asking you to get a little more money to it, depending on how many surprises. But I want to say to you, Bob's Furniture, they said it couldn't be done, and I say to you, this could be done, it can be done, and it will be done. As long as we have the wonderful, inspired leadership of our Monsignor, this will be done in 2020 or